Today, we have the opportunity to interview creator, artist, writer, Tony Fleecs, who has worked for almost every single company in the comic book industry.
And so if you've ever wondered what the difference might be working for a company like Marvel and working for a company like Image or IDW or Boom Studios, Tony Fleecs might be the guy to answer that question.
Big versus small. Also, Tony Fleecs has worked on a animated series that has a rabid fan base. I hope he'll talk to us about that too. Let's get this interview started.
Ready? We are now recording. So we are here with Tony Fleecs, writer and artist of many, many comic books and from many, many companies, actually, you've worked for.
Yeah, you worked for almost everybody, right?
And your latest thing coming out is Uncanny Valley from Boom Studios?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so can you give us a quick breakdown of what Uncanny Valley is? I mean, I know what the term means, but what does it have to do? What's the comic?
So it's a story about a 12-year-old kid named Oliver who he's got a single mom and she's a traveling nurse, and they're always moving around, and so he never really settles in at any one place. He never feels like he fits in, and he always wants the other kids in class to like accept him. And, he's like a regular kid. Like it's really important for him to feel accepted and fit in someplace. And he doesn't have any sort of connection to he doesn't know any other family besides his mom. And that's sort of a mystery. But she just sort of, she tells them that they're all they need. They've got each other and that's all they need. But then strange things start happening to him and around him. And we find out in the first issue that the reason that he doesn't feel like he fits in is because his grandfather is a cartoon character. He's like a Yosemite Sam, basically. And so he's part cartoon. And the reason he doesn't fit in is because he literally is different,
Wow.
And so it's this adventure movie, like a coming of age story, but also like a Roger Rabbit. Dave Wachter, who draws the thing, said it was like Percy Jackson, but with Looney Tunes instead of Greek gods.
That's great. Wow.
And this is your original idea. This is all, right?
Yeah, this was I had a list of creator-owned pitches that I take when I go to a publisher or whatever, and Boom took a look at that and was like, this sounds like something we could really sink our teeth into. So
autobiographical, right?
Yeah. My grandfather was a cartoon character himself. Yeah. It is a little bit like this guy drives the same car as my grandpa, and my grandpa didn't have legs, and so he had a shifter thing to drive the car with, and this guy's only this high, so he has to use that same deal to drive the car.
And when is that coming out?
So it comes out on April 10th, and it FOCs this Monday, so this coming Monday.
Oh, okay. So we got to get to our local comic shops and put our requests in.
Put our polls in for it?
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
How does it work? Because you've worked for so many different companies. You go in and pitch the idea. How do you decide who you're going to with? Why go to Boom with this one?
Like I said, I feel like this feels like a Boom book. Like when you hear that pitch, you go like, yeah, that sounds like something that you would get from a Boom comic. But I, after Stray Dogs came out and was successful, I sort of had a lot of opportunities with the publishers in comics. Nobody yet outside of comics, like no book publisher, like lit agent type stuff yet. But inside of comics, it feels like people mostly know who I am now. And Stray Dogs sold well enough that they all sort of wanted to be in business, which is great.
You go in and they know you, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So I don't have to send them a pitch or anything. It's just my editor on this book, John Moisen. I've known him, and I've known most everybody at Boom for years, but I had to be somebody that they could, that they weren't taking too much of a risk on dumping a bunch of money into a book. And so they came to me and they said, what do you got? And like I said, I have a big list of here's these 10, 15 ideas I have that I'm going to make by the time I'm dead or whatever, I retire. And that was one of them.
Now, for a company like Boom, they seem to be pretty ascendant at the moment. I don't know, from what I've seen, because when I first became aware of them, they were doing more like intellectual property stuff, right? And now they seem to be doing a lot of really cool original stuff, like what you were talking about with Uncanny Valley. And I think, what was the one that I read from them? a year ago. They did a really good horror series, and
Something's killing the children.
Yeah,
that's it. Oh my God, yeah, Something's killing the children. So yeah, they seem to be one of those companies that's moving more toward creator-owned stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think most places are, if they're not Marvel and DC,
Right.
There have been a couple big smash hits recently with licensed stuff, but I think people are sort of realizing like the market on that sort of shrinks as time goes on.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody the other day about the last time there was sort of like a big Transformers, Thundercats, G.I. Joe boom was, the last time things started to dip, and it's like, well, we bring out Thundercats and G.I. Joe and Transformers, but besides Transformers, there's not like a new readership for those there's not like a young Thundercats crowd, unless they really love that, the Cartoon Network thing.
Which was a shame that failed. It was great.
Yeah, it was cool, but it's not like those numbers that are coming in on that book are from those kids, Transformers keeps gaining new readers, new fans all the time because of the movies and stuff, but it does seem interesting. So I think people who are smart in publishing are looking towards trying to create what the new franchises will be, or what the new, so like with Boom, Something is Killing the Children, or Berserker, those things, right? Like they're a new title, and then all of a sudden they can do a spin-off off of it, and they can do, another spin, like they can just sort of start to have their own Hellboys or whatever.
Right. Well, exactly. It's a Walking Dead thing, isn't it? So you have Walking Dead, which blows up, and then you're not looking to old properties, you're looking to new properties, which is a great thing for comics, because you're getting some really great stuff coming out right now.
Well, it's a great thing for creators like me who, I feel like playing around in licensed stuff and superhero stuff. I'm not full on Kirkman Manifesto, but I am, a little bit like, I feel like if somebody looks like me, I'm probably not the voice of a new X-Men generation, it's like, let some young person come and say what mutants mean to them at this point, because my shit is still, what it meant to Jim Lee and Chris Claremont or whatever,
Yeah, right. So well, that's something I was going to say. Like those of us who've been into collecting comics for a while, or been comic fans for a long time, we've seen those stories come, go, come back again, go, come back again. So we are really, as fans, we're looking for the new stuff. We're looking for the new ideas. After a while, you get tired of, how many times is that character going to die and come back? How many times is this marriage going to not happen and then happen again? So you want the newer stuff, things like Uncanny Valley. And just from what you're describing of Uncanny Valley, that sounds like something that has the potential to be like an IP thing for you, like as a creator. Like I could definitely see that being adapted to a movie, it would be a bizarre movie, but
sure,
you can see it done, it's not impossible.
Yeah, all these stuff, like I was at this retailer conference in Pittsburgh, Comics Pro, a couple weeks ago. And when I would talk to retailers about it, I would explain all, this or Feral or Local Man or, any of these things. And they all, from comic book standards, sound bizarre or sort of like left of center. But if it was just a TV show or a movie, it'd be the most mainstream thing you ever heard of. Just like this very recognizable trope, coming of age story, and with a very recognizable, Looney Tunes cast.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, there's no reason why that there can't be new things. Like, why can't we have new things, Well,
that's the type of stuff that I'm always, I get the most creative and the most inspired to make stuff when I come up with something that feels like, oh, nobody else has done this.
Right.
And that's what I feel like is, for me, is I struggle with when I do other work, because I do, like, I'm working on licensed stuff all the time.
Sure.
Do Army of Darkness, doing a thing for Marvel, hell yeah. But even with the Army of Darkness, like I had to figure out a way to do a story that nobody had done before to be able to get excited about it,
Now, do you have limitations on that? 'Cause I've read the last one was you drew Reanimator, right? So you weren't writing it.
I just did covers for that, yeah.
You did covers, it was great. This one is fantastic. And I'll be obviously honest with you. What Brian says is not necessarily true of me. I love superheroes, so I buy superheroes.
Yeah.
So you give me Superman again and again and again and again, I'll
You're fine.
But I buy a lot of stuff that just looks cool. Like, I don't know how well you know, Have you read Maple Terrace yet by Noah Van Sciver?
No.
It's
I
about
like Noah Van Sciver though.
it's about him growing up reading comics, so it's fantastic.
Oh wow, yeah.
For me, this is I'm going to say something and I'm going to get myself in trouble. I probably buy about maybe 40 to 50 titles a month, right? This is one of the titles, and it's not because you're on here. This is one of the titles, the first things I pick up when my pulls. 'Cause I love the reimagination of something that I've grown up loving, and this is one of those things. And you're doing a great job, man. It's absolutely fantastic. The same thing, but Local Man is just so different.
Yeah.
Anything I've read before. It's just the way you take a character and make him a superhero, make it not, I don't understand, like not like a normal person, but someone who's really has had a rough time.
Yeah.
And
Flawed.
it's been really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so me and Tim Seeley coming up with Local Man, that was sort of what we talked about when we were talking. Like the surface of it is like we love Youngblood and Wildcats and stuff, and we want to say something about that. But the underneath all that part of it was like him and I were both going through a lot of shit at that time separately in our own lives.
Right.
And it's just like, let's funnel all that into something, and find a way to make those things work together, Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it seems so discordant to have like an Extreme Studios style superhero and also a story about like grief and failure and, so, but that's what's fun about it for us is like, I love the idea of making something that somebody looks at and they goes like, what is this bullshit? And then when they pick it up, they go like, oh man, this hurts my feelings,
See, with that one, it's funny because that's one of the comics I pick up when I go to a little comic store. I picked it up the first time. Like it was the cover. The cover grabbed me. And I'm like, this looks good. And then you're reading like, wow, this is really fucked up, but it's so good. And I keep picking it up. So how many issues of that are we actually getting?
We're doing at least 15. We're working on issue 10 right now, but it's actually the 12th one.
What do I have in my hand right here? This is what? This
says issue 3 on.
No, I've way later than that though. I have
up through 9 are out, and then
9 are out. Yeah,
the gold crossover. So there's 10 issues out.
There's this one, right? That's the gold crossover.
I love the covers are such a great callback to that 90s early Image.
Thank you.
That time period. That's great.
That really, it grabs you when you first buy it. That takes me back to the days when I was buying Image comics.
Yeah.
And the story is Brian's not reading it. The story is basically how it's a failed superhero and he's trying to make amends for what's happened.
I want to. You have collections coming out for this?
First trade's out. Second trade will be out early April, I believe.
Yeah, I'll probably end up getting a trade.
100%.
Yeah.
But the hardest part about that book actually is those covers, because Tim and I we both write it and we both draw it. So we're like the only, besides the colorists, I letter it. We're the only people that are involved in making it, except we also, for every issue, make it a point to get somebody from the 90s Image Comics to draw those covers. So a lot of these guys are still working. Like you showed, that one's Todd Knock. Like he's obviously just still working all the time. But some of them, you got to track them down somewhere, or So it's not like they're not reliable, but it's just a matter of like making sure you're staying on top of it and just being like, oh, we have a Whilce Portacio cover for issue 10.
Oh, nice.
And it took a little bit of wrangling just because he's, he still works. He's a popular artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, but those are really rewarding and fun too, to see your characters drawn by like these guys that drew these comics that meant so much to us when we were kids.
That's incredible. It's really takes back. I think that's one of the things I like about it. Whilce
Portacio did one of my favorite covers of all time, the X-Men with Storm in the Rain.
Oh hell yeah,
that's a great cover.
Incredible. It was 2 in a row too, because that one with her and Forge that was like the month before or after was also
Yeah, that was like my golden era of X-Men collecting. I love that. That was fantastic.
He was on a real heater.
You also have Feral is something too right now. That's with Image Comics, and that's the sequel to Stray Dogs.
Yeah, it's more of a follow-up. It's not like you don't have to have read Stray Dogs to understand Feral, but Stray Dogs was in 2021 was a book that Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez and Brad Simpson and I did. That was about a group of dogs that find out their owner is a serial killer who murders people and takes their dogs as trophies. So like all these dogs find out that they thought they lived in like this peaceful, idyllic, Disney movie, but they actually live in a horror movie. And that did really, that's sort of like the thing that, why I got to make Local Man, why I got to make Uncanny Valley and Army of Darkness and all this stuff. Because it did really well. And when we were finishing that book, like it's a story about one villain, and we had a story where that villain, spoilers, but he doesn't escape at the end and come back to kill again. So
Right.
we knew it was sort of over at the end of Stray Dogs, but we started thinking about like what could we possibly do to keep this going, because we love working together. And I feel like we sort of discovered a subgenre of like cute horror comics. That there had been, like, obviously Evan Dorkin and Jill Thompson did Beast of Burden.
Beast of Burden, yeah.
Beforehand, and I feel like we three is sort of in this subgenre a little bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like Stray Dogs, we sort of kicked the doors off the place, and we're just like, this is what this can be, and really went all the way with it. So we wanted to come back and do something like that, but not repeat ourselves. And so obviously, if you do a dog comic and it's successful, a cat comic is just sitting there waiting to be.
It's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, but then it was so low hanging that it was like, all right, well, we can't do anything else that's super expected, So we don't want to do serial killers again. We don't want to do any of the same tricks. So we made this one like basically like a zombie story. There's a huge rabies outbreak, and these indoor cats get lost out in the middle of the woods, and they have to sort of like find their way to safety in a forest full of zombified animals who, if they scratch them or bite them, they could either kill them or turn them. So it's sort of like just a straight zombie story, but with cats.
With cat, that's interesting.
You're raising some childhood trauma from Benji come home. Like I was so upset when I watched Benji come home when I was a kid. He's lost, can't get home,
And now zombies are chasing.
Now zombies are there, and they forget it. We're gonna make it.
Yeah, like all that sort of stuff is what we're drawing from, like Homeward Bound and Benji movies and Don Bluth movies, especially, where it would be like these very cute characters who are in these horrifying situations.
It's funny. I was going to ask about Don Bluth because I saw something online about you saying something about Don Bluth, and so the Secret of Nim, probably a big deal.
Yeah,
for you, yeah.
So like terrifying, that movie.
Oh my God, pivotal.
Rats.
My parents took me to see that, thinking they were taking me to see like a Disney film.
Yeah, Fox
I just was stunned as a kid, absolutely stunned by what that movie was really about.
Yeah,
I've seen. I saw it when it first came out. See Disney. I don't remember it though.
It's really a beautiful movie, and the scary stuff is still pretty scary.
Yeah, it's really disturbing,
but not supposed to be. Like, it was hidden.
No, it is. Like, it's supposed to be scary.
No, it's right in line with those 80s movies like Dark Crystal and The Never Ending Story, where they were just like, we're just gonna really try to screw up as many kids as we can.
Yeah.
And now,
it's like they didn't have a switch for this might be too rough for kids.
Right. Yeah.
They're just like, well, this is the scary part, so let's scare them, and it works because you remember it forever, and you're really rooting for those characters. But
and as soon as you said the sentence that Stray Dogs is about animals that thought they were in a Disney movie but find out they're in a horror film, that my radar pinged right away. I was like, oh, I'm gonna like that because I grew up with that.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of like it's nostalgic. Just in the way that we're presenting it, we're drawing it like like a '90s animated movie, But we didn't want to lean into this nostalgia so much that we weren't bringing something new to it. So that's like, I feel like that's what people respond to in Stray Dogs, and hopefully with Feral too, is that they see it and they're like, oh, this is familiar to me. But then when they read it, they just go like, oh, that's not at all what I thought it was going to be. That's not at all what I was expecting. And it could have been a huge detriment. Luckily it worked great on Stray Dogs, but I've always drawn cartoony.
Yeah.
The way I draw in Local Man is sort of different than everything else I've ever done. And so I have this like chip on my shoulder where I'm like, this should also work for telling stories with. Like, I should be able to draw it like this and it should work. Yeah. That was like the point I was trying to prove with Stray Dogs, and it worked, but it could have gone horribly wrong. Luckily it did not.
And that got licensed to Paramount, right? So are they working on an animated?
No, we sold the rights to them, or we optioned the rights to Paramount. So they had the option, and they wrote a screenplay and they sort of started developing it, but they had some shakeups over there. Hollywood is crazy right now. They're not making a movie of it as of right now, and we're sort of talking to other people, but it'll be something at some point, I'm sure. Or they'll just keep optioning it and I'll keep getting money and that's fine too.
Every time they option it, yeah, that's
Yeah, right. Yeah.
that's not bad at all.
Who did we talk to that was it Noah? Ben Skyver was talking about getting
Getting
optioned.
optioned
And then you just keep getting money, but they never actually make anything.
Anything with it.
And a lot of creators find that to be like,
it was with the Grateful Dead.
right, the Grateful Dead one.
The Grateful Dead
Right.
book he
People kept
worked on.
optioning it and then
Yeah.
never doing anything with it. But so he's getting money. It was like the best of both worlds because you're getting paid for it, but you actually don't have to worry about them ruining it.
Yeah.
Making
Yeah,
it
for
a
sure.
bad movie. So
That's when I got into comics, when I started making comics, that story was about 30 Days a Night, because that movie was still ways from coming out, and it kept just getting optioned over and over and over again. Like the option would run out and somebody else would pick it up because it's a great idea. You're like an incredible pitch.
yeah.
Yeah,
Again, just like you're talking about the idea for Stray Dogs, it has that same thing of like, oh, look at this sort of nice, sort of comfortable thing, and then, oh, no, that's not
Yeah.
what we're going to show you. You know, like
Yeah.
that works so well for so many good horror stories. You know, hey, look at this clown. Oh, no,
Yeah. Oh, he eats beer?
right. So you started with something called In My Lifetime, right? Is that one of your early pieces? That's a memoir.
Yeah, it was the very first thing I did. I was inspired by sort of like people making comics online and printing them, like print on demand places. Like I was in the message boards. I was on the Brian Michael Bendis message board, and I was on this other Shane Glines message board, and I was just seeing all these sort of like creative people making stuff, and it was like a lot of people that are in my like peer group now, you know, like.
Yeah.
There's like a generation ahead of me that's like Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick and Kieran Gillen and like that whole gang. And they were over on the Warren Ellis forum. I was too dumb for Warren Ellis forum. I was on the Brian Michael Bendis forum where
Was
me
that
and
the
my
Jinx
stupid
World?
friends hung out.
The Jinx World?
Yeah, Jinx World. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the people that came out of that was like me, Jonathan Hickman, Nick Spencer, and then Dave Wachter, who draws Uncanny Valley, also, like, me and him met over there, and we started working on stuff over there. Josh Fialkov, who was another buddy of mine, I collaborated with a bunch.
Yeah.
But I was there and I was watching people make stuff, and none of the writers that I thought were sort of good were like at the level where they'd want to work with me, like where I was at, you know? And so I was just like, well, what if I just write? Like that was the first time I wrote anything for myself or even thought about being a writer. Like I'd grown up just figuring I would draw stuff and draw cartoons. And,
Yeah.
but I was into Jeffrey Brown comics at the time, and American Splendor had just come out, and I read Blankets, and it was sort of like that early 2000s, like autobio.
Sure.
James Kolchaka. And so I was like, well, I could do that. Like I could just, I tell stories all the time. Like I'm talking to you guys. I would go out and like have drinks and talk to people about things that happened in my day and tell stories. And there were stories that I told over and over again. And I was like, why don't I just tell those stories, you know, put like 4 of these in a book and have that be, then I can draw it and I can sort of learn how to do this. And so that was sort of like how I taught myself how to write comics and make comics. And like, it was the first time I did sort of like panel work and basically everything.
Yeah.
It was just from watching other people make comics and like sort of deconstructing how to do it and how I would do it without, again, doing something that nobody else had done, right? Like people could identify with the type of stories I was telling, but I knew they were going to be, you know, unique because they were my stories.
Of course. Yeah. Well, you and I could tell the same story and it would end up being different anyway because
Yeah.
different people.
Yeah, different point of view.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I did that, and that found a small press publisher, and that's basically how I got into like that. It went through Diamond, it got distributed to a bunch of comic stores, and sold, you know, a tiny amount. But to me, just even being in the Diamond catalog, and like it got written up in like Comics Buyer's Guide and Wizard and stuff, and I was like, I'm here, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's something that stuck with me. That I remember watching Brian Michael Bendis's TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
When people asked him, "How do I get into comics?" And he would be like, "Well, first you write one, and then you get it drawn or you draw it, and then you put it out and you're in comics."
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you do.
Yeah.
There's no one going to say like, "Nope, sorry, can't do it." You know, and that's just seems to be you just go do it. right?
Yeah, it's like Robert Rodriguez wanted to be a filmmaker. He just made himself a business card that said filmmaker on it.
Exactly. And he was a
Like, we're
filmmaker.
good here.
We did the same thing with YouTube. We just wanted to be.
You got a business card that says YouTuber?
Here we are. We do. We actually do have a card that says that.
Do we?
We do. We hand it out all the time. What do you
Gotta read
prefer?
our
You
cards.
prefer to write or to draw? If you had your choice, artist or writer?
If I had my choice, I would have a situation where I could make enough money doing like both, like doing like what Terry Moore does or Kazuo Kibuishi or like one of these people that can take a long stretch and tell a big long story and draw and write and draw. That's sort of what I'm aiming towards, what I would love to end up doing.
Yeah.
But I always make complications for myself. Like right now I bought a house, so I
So
can't.
that'll do it.
Where are you?
I'm in Van Nuys, California, in Los
Okay.
Angeles.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
you're on the other side.
You're on the opposite side of
Yeah.
us. We're in New York City.
We're in Staten Island, New York right now.
Yeah, it's early afternoon here. So.
Yeah, we're getting
We're getting into dinner time. Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't I have to keep writing and drawing and doing everything to sort of keep all the bills paid, while I'm at this stage. But I feel like that usually what I do is I take some giant leap, like buying a house, or like I quit my job and started just making comics, and then eventually you find equilibrium and you
Sure. What was
So-
your job before comic?
I worked as a graphic designer at a TV station. I had gone to art school, and the only art job that I could get as like a 19, 20-year-old was this, I made like the over-the-shoulder graphics and the little lower third graphics, and maps and stuff. And that place was cool for a long time. They would let me just like use the computers at the station. And so like I made my first comics there at the station.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you have worked in TV, right? You wrote for My Little Pony, right?
Yeah,
Right, for the cartoon.
yeah. I wrote for so I drew the My Little Pony comics that was like the real like on the job training of me working in comics. Was I made that book in my lifetime, and then yada yada yada, 6 years. I got a job at IDW drawing My Little Pony, and I did that for almost 10 years.
Right.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, so I just cranked it. I did that. I did like Star Wars comics and Rick and Morty comics, a bunch of licensed stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I wanted to make more creator-owned stuff. It was like I had sort of crested on that and was like, I need to make sure I don't forget to do this other part of my career.
Yeah.
But yeah, working in My Little Pony, I met a bunch of people and like got into that whole, like I would go to like the Brony
Yeah,
convention.
you're a brony, right? That's what you.
Yeah, well, I mean, on paper, I'm sure I am. I'm like a professional brony for pay.
So you've been to a bunch of those conventions,
At least 100, I would say, just a ton of them.
and are they what they say they are?
I don't know what they say, but
I don't even know what
no,
that
it's-
says.
they're not all perverts and creeps like you might think. Some of them
I
are.
didn't think
No,
that. Did you think that?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't think that.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what people think right away. No, they're mostly pretty benign, sweet kids. They're just sort of like they're like that generation that
Yeah.
they're like weebs. They don't have a lot of. Their ambition is different from the way our ambition was.
Yes.
And so their ambition gets pointed at different things than ours did. They're sweet kids, but there are perverts for sure. But because the lesson of the show is acceptance and everybody has their own thing and acceptance and stuff like that, they accept the perverts. And so it'll just be like, somebody who is completely asexual standing next to somebody who just only wants to fuck horses.
Oh,
and
God.
they're in perfect harmony together. They don't fuck horses in real life. They're not like Mr. Hands.
No, it goes to the furry thing, right? It's more.
Yes,
it's more of a
it
furry.
definitely the convention scene for ponies grew out of the convention scene for furries. So there's some real crossover there.
I'm a little.
Where were we?
Completely derailed at this point.
I'm feeling a little disillusioned.
You also worked on Muppet Babies, right?
That's true. Yeah. Oh, so the pony job for TV came from other people who I met, like in that world, like my friend Jillian, who used to write the novels. Then she wrote for the TV show. She ended up show running the last Netflix show, and she liked my writing because I would go work with her. Like when I was writing Stray Dogs, I went and sort of like shot the outline at her and was like, "What do you think of this?" And she was like, "This is crazy. You always have good ideas." So she brought me in for that. And the Muppet Babies was another friend of mine, just had the job as the art director on that thing. And because I can write stuff and draw stuff and, color, and like I do basically all the parts. This buddy of mine had been working at Muppet Babies, and then he got promoted, and he needed somebody that could do the exact same stuff as him while he was off taking meetings and stuff. So I just came in. It was an incredible job because it happened right when COVID started. And so right when all conventions went away and 40% of my income went away, it just got right away replaced by this job that just I worked through basically until Stray Dogs came out. So I never had, all that, like that frightening time in COVID where everybody was just like, how are we going to make ends meet and stuff? I was killing it, which, feels bad to say now, but
no, we say the same thing. COVID was, I want to say it was great, but it was for us personally, we're both teachers. So in our real lives, we got paid and we got to spend time with our families that would never have happened before. It wasn't, we didn't really lose anybody, thankfully, but it was, it was nice. Yeah. It wasn't easy, but it was nice.
A weird thing to have lived through for sure, but that really was. That job came along. It really saved my ass.
Impacting us heavily now for the next generation that we're seeing now. So,
yeah, I'm sure you guys are seeing it up close being teachers.
It's tough. It's been a tough 2 years.
Oof.
Now, so are you going to do a My Little Pony Stray Dog kind of thing and do a nice horror pony?
We talked about it
out there.
Yeah, because Trish, who draws Stray Dogs, I met her through My Little Pony. She was like a fan of, again, not a pervert. She was like a fan of the My Little Pony cartoon, but she's a fan of like all cartoons. She just loves cartoons. That's why she's so good at drawing cartoons. But I met her at one of these shows, and she was set up like selling merchandise and stuff, just homemade stuff. And then she got a job doing covers for the My Little Pony comics that I worked on. And I was like, oh, she's like a pro now. Like she works. I can tell, like, so many times you go to conventions and you see, like, you work with kids, you see kids set up a booth and you're just like, all right, cool. Are they like, how long does it take them to do this? Can they do this every day? Can they do this, 8 hours a day? And Trish, who's not a kid, she's my age, but I saw her start working, and then I started talking to her about this. I could tell right away that she was diligent and hardworking and like all the stuff that it takes to make a comic, especially, a create your own comic that you're not getting paid for until it comes out.
Right.
But yeah, so she came from My Little Pony too, and we have talked about like it'd be cool to do 3, to do Stray Dogs and then do Feral, but Feral's an ongoing. So years from now, when Feral's done, hopefully, come back and do like a mini series or something, like a cap on the thing that's about horses, and just do like a trilogy of animal horror things.
Oh, great idea.
Army of Darkness, My Little Pony crossover.
Now, I feel like I could get that going right now.
I have a feeling Bruce Campbell would be interested.
You call him a pervert?
No, the man likes to work.
Okay. So when you do something like Army of Darkness, do you have guidelines, or you really have to follow? You have to carry the character of Ash in a certain way, or do they give you more freedom?
It surprisingly, there is a lot of freedom. Okay. I took this job because I had worked with Dynamite as just an artist doing covers for years.
Right.
And then like everything else, like when Stray Dogs came out, they were like, oh, we could sell books off of your name. So let's try and do something. And I love horror movies. I love Evil Dead, especially, and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. And so they were like, would you be interested in doing Army of Darkness? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yeah, I would love to. And so I started thinking about it, and they were like, put together an outline, and the guidelines were really like anything. It's just very easy process for whatever reason. Like I said, would it be okay to do something that's a sequel to the director's cut where Ash ends up in the future? Has anybody ever done that before? And they were like, yeah, nobody ever did that before. And I was like, oh, crazy. Well, that opens everything up. Like I could really go crazy on this thing. So I wrote an outline, and my plan was to make it not just the sequel to the director's cut, but also to the original ending, and make it so everything all fits together. And even though like Dynamite only owns the right to Army of Darkness, or they licensed the right to Army of Darkness. So you can't use Evil Dead stuff or Evil Dead 2 stuff. You can't use Ash versus Evil Dead or the remakes.
Right.
But there's a way to sort of like hand wave and make all that stuff still fit in together.
Yeah.
Which is sort of what they did in the movies, right? Like the movies all come from different studios, but they all fit together because
Yes.
But B, because, you know, you can just sort of go like, this sort of happens, you know?
Yeah. And
So
horror fans are not sticklers for continuity in the same way.
right. They understand, I think, more than most people, like the behind the scenes, and, you know, like they know which Jason movies are from New Line and which Jason movies are from Paramount,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yes.
So yeah, I came up with an outline, and I had some out there stuff in it, and I sent it in there. Like, we sent it to MGM, who owns the rights to it now, and MGM loves it, and they're cool with it. And so then they just gave me a couple things. Like, I had Army of Darkness is an R-rated movie, so I was using, like, you know, I had fucks in there, and the violence was pretty, like, my main beef with Army of Darkness out of the trilogy is that the other two are so violent.
Yeah.
And Army of Darkness is more of like a family movie, you know?
It almost is, especially the way it ends.
Yeah.
It's like, we're all friends now. And I had a friend years ago, just to throw this in there, who actually would tear up at the end of Army of Darkness because he found it so touching.
That's so beautiful. But yeah, I was like, I would love to just keep the vibe of this the same, but make it like hyper violent. Like, I would love it to just be like as gory as I want it to be. And they were like, MGM wants to keep, like, we know it's an R-rated movie, but they try to keep it at like a PG-13. So that was like the only note that they gave me. And I've been able to push pretty, like, they haven't ever said this is too gross or,
That's
you know.
funny because the Evil Dead reboot from 2013, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, hard on.
Wow, was that brutal?
Yeah,
I really liked
pulling
it.
her arm off.
Oh, I enjoyed it, but I didn't expect it to go that far. The scene with the guy getting stabbed by the syringe.
See the last one?
Woo.
See the last one?
Oh yeah, I liked Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise.
I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm.
But even that, those are not MGM. Like, those are at a different studio too.
Right,
So like,
yeah.
it's whole different people, you know,
Yeah.
behind what those things are supposed to be like. So yeah, I'm doing my best to make it all fit together, but also have it just be surprising, and you know, the impulse, I think, when you do a Army of Darkness comic is just to make Ash cool and have him sit groovy and have the boomstick and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when you watch those movies, what actually happens is Ash thinks he's cool and he's not, and he gets his ass kicked the whole time.
Right.
And when he says groovy in the movies, you like it because you're just like, it's not groovy, dude. You're fucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the way I'm trying to play it.
He's lucky. He's not a good hero.
No.
I wouldn't even say he's lucky. He just ends up getting attacked by demons his whole life.
Yeah.
No, but he should be dead.
Well, that was
more times than not.
That was one of the great things about the show, Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Was that they really kind of made it very, very clear that this guy is a dope. He's he's a great dope, but he's a dope.
Yeah.
You know? And they
I think
did a great
that's
job with that.
That's what Sam and Bruce and Sam Raimi's brother Ivan, like all the people that were behind those characters in those movies from start, I feel like that's what the map that they laid out. And so I'm just trying to go with that.
And you're doing a
great
great
part
job.
is
It's fantastic. It's
Thanks,
like, because we don't have anything to really digest at this point, and comics has really become the way to digest those film properties that are fantastic.
Yeah, the ones we want to see more.
Yeah, like
of.
Marvel's has Aliens and Predator right now, and it's been great because it's filling that void that we don't have right now.
Well, I went and read as much as possible every interview they ever did about like what we were gonna do, what we plan to do, but they couldn't do it now because Ash is 68 years old or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Bruce Campbell's too old to pick up right where that last movie left off. So
you can't replace him. You can't have someone.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Because that would be awful.
So I just went and looked at like what they were doing and tried to figure out a way to bring it all. So I'm glad you like it. I literally never talk about it because I don't know how many people buy Dynamite comics.
No, it's funny because that's the reason why I reached out to you was directly because of that. I was sitting reading it, the last issue that came out, and I was like, you know what? Let me see if Tony Fleecs would be interested in just I really like what it is, and then I was like, wait a second, he's doing Local Man too. Hold on a second, what I'm reading right now is what you're putting at. You're really like the two big titles I read right now are these two.
Thanks, man.
Great. I actually have a question about one of your other things that I haven't read, but sounded really interesting. Time Shopper.
Yeah.
Where's the concept that it sounded so interesting? The whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
So the guy goes back in time and buys stuff.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. It comes from when I was watching Back to the Future 2 when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And how, for me, the whole movie stops on a dime right when Doc Brown brings out that money. He brings out a suitcase full of money. He's like, hey, you're going to need this money.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, 10, 12 years old or whatever. I'd never seen $100 all in one place. And I was just like, wow, he's going back in time with all this money. Think of what he could buy. He could get everything. He could get every comic book. And so a buddy of mine was pitching me his time travel story. And he got to a point where he paused for a second. And I was like, and then does he go buy stuff with all that money? And he was like, what? No, who cares about that? And I was like, that's all I can think about. Right
every collector in the world.
Did you ever read the Back to the Future comic book?
Yes. Yeah. I talked to Bob Dale about Time Shopper when we were promoting it, and he was talking about it. And yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
He goes back and buys a whole bunch of Action Comics, number one, just to fund what he wants to do in the future, to fund I mean, it sounds fantastic, like a fantastic idea. That how did no one else ever think of this as a story before?
Can you imagine that one Star Wars figures on cards we would have?
It'd be incredible. Yeah, you basically have the exact shit you have behind you right now, except you would have got it for cheap.
I always worry about getting caught back there. Like if you think, and it's kind of sad that I thought about this. One of the things you'd have to go back in time, but you'd have to go back in time and buy Action Comics number one, if you could. Where are you buying it? Because there's no comic book shop. But how are you getting there? So if you travel back in time right now, right where we're standing right now, shut up. How do you get there from here? You cannot get from where we are right now in 1937. They had ferries. Not like they do.
Well, you got to have a time machine. You're saying you travel to the corner where the newsstand is?
I have to
time travel right there.
You have to be honest with time travel. I'm traveling to where I am, so I have to travel to my. You have to be.
So you're saying where in 1938 or whatever? When was it?
Yeah, 1938.
Yeah.
Where in your neighborhood would you go get a
Superman to buy Superman number one? And to go in and buy,
you can move around.
But to me, the transportation is not the same.
They're using like the time machine from Pi, where like you're gonna have to get back to it really quickly.
That's right. I have to get back, and like if you go back to 1977, yes, easy. I go to Toys R Us, I buy it. If I go back to 1937, which would be my first stop, where am I getting Superman? Where am I getting Action Comics number one?
Well, 77 would be no good. You have to go 78 when the toys that came out, because 77 you just got that card.
I got that. Yeah, that sells for a while. I would just go grab that card.
Get the card.
Go to Sears.
I wouldn't save anybody. I wouldn't, try.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what the story's about. It's about this guy gets a job traveling in time, and he's supposed to go save people. He's supposed to kill baby Hitler and like warn the Titanic and stuff. But instead, he just gets so distracted by how cheap everything is that he just goes shopping in time and screws a bunch of stuff up. And it was going to be distributed through Diamond and come out in comic shops. But COVID and the publisher I was at both kind of fucked up. And so we just got the rights to it back and kickstarted it. And so now you can get it on like my website, or you can get it at cheapgraphicnovels.com.
That was my next question. Where could I get it?
Yeah.
I've never seen it out. Because it's definitely something, if I saw when it was coming out, I would have, time travel hits me good, I would have went and bought that. So
yeah. TonyFleecs.com, you can grab one.
Okay. And we'll link that to the video too, where people can find you
Sweet. Yeah, so you're asking about all the right things. You're talking you're talking about Army Darkness Forever and Time Shopper. Nobody cares about these things. You guys
are wrong, because oh no, we don't do these interviews to like I know people do interviews and they want to get clicks. Watching, and they want to get clicks. Yeah. We pick people we want to talk to, and I really like your stuff. So we're fans. We're really not. I mean, I won't say we're not YouTubers because that ruins what I'm trying to do, but we get people on here who we really like, who we like their stuff, and we think that they're fans like we are. So if you're doing Ash, you're a fan of that. A person you can see it through reading it that you're a fan, and that's those are the people we want to talk to.
I'm excited to hear what you think of issue 6, because we really throw a.
That's come out yet? No, I have 5.
No, it's the next one.
Yeah, I have.
Really throw a twist in there, so I'm excited to see where people end up.
That's the last one. I'm really enjoying it.
Message me thumbs up or thumbs down when you get to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, if you were given the option of working on any property right now, what would you want to work on if you could work on anything?
Man, well, the answer I always give is I would just, if I could work on any property or I could just do my own stuff, I would do my own stuff. But I guess I always wanted to do some sort of New Mutants thing.
Okay.
Ooh.
More of a horror twist to it too.
They just did that. I feel like Matt Rosenberg or somebody did that horror miniseries, like one of the last New Mutants miniseries. I wouldn't mind that. That's kind of cool. I like that movie, actually. Compared to some of the superhero movies that come out, I thought the New Mutants one was pretty, the horror take on it was pretty good.
Yeah. The problem was it wasn't a superhero movie. That's what.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I heard it. No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's and the character, the people they chose to play the roles were perfect.
Yeah. Anna Taylor-Joy. I feel like if it came out like a year later, it would have been a much better situation.
Yeah.
It just wasn't they would have really pushed it as a horror movie more than the superhero would have done much better.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone seen it.
Yeah. So New Mutants.
Yeah, I guess New Mutants probably. I mean, luckily, I drew Star Wars comics when IDW had the kids license, and I was a huge Star Wars fan. My whole life. Sort of less so right now, actually, because I feel like they keep making more and more of it, and I'm just like, this is getting less and less special all the time. I liked it when it was movies. I still watch all this stuff, but
But it does get hard to keep up with sometimes.
yeah. Well, I mean, I could make I made myself like those prequels, and even the sequels, I was like, yeah, all right, but then when it's like every week there's an episode on, and now fucking Tim Meadows is in it now, and I'm just like, what's going on here?
It's hard to
Jack Black's in here.
Now, my last question: if there was a creator you could work with, who would you want to work with?
Oh boy. Well, I want to do, so we're doing a one-shot thing with Army of Darkness that I want to work with, I want it to be like Juan Jose Rip and Jeff Darrow. I want it to just be people that can draw guts and gore and stuff like that. So in the immediate, I'm hoping to find, Nick Pitara or, my buddy Chris Burnham, just these people that go crazy drawing gore and disgusting stuff. That would be great for me in this immediate. But also as an artist, I would love to do a Brian K. Vaughan comic. He's one of my favorites. I don't know, I don't know what he would get out of me doing it, because he can work with anybody, and I'm just sort of keeping up to draw my own stuff and stuff. But that would be awesome. I would love to do that. Or in his heyday, Brian Michael Bendis comic. I love those so much.
Yeah, he did great work.
He really did. Listen, if you ever want to put ugly mugs in one of your comics, you could.
Oh, look! As you can tell in Local Man, I use photo reference all the time. So
use
you want to send me
at any point you want.
Suitable for horror comics. Well, listen. Thank you so much for your time. This has been great.
Yeah. Wait, I have one suggestion for you.
You do?
Yes.
I love what you do with Ash. It fills in that void. How about the Warriors? I would really like to see a Warriors comic to fill in my Warriors void.
Oh, this has been years talking about
I
that.
haven't gotten it. I love the movie. I watch it every time, but no one has ever done anything past that.
Yeah.
I think it's right for the picking.
I feel like it's not. I feel like you want a New York creator to do it. Unless it's the Los Angeles Warriors, unless it's if you move it someplace else. But
I would have to LA and he starts to gang. I get a lot of things like Back to the Future was filled in really nicely with what they did.
Yeah.
Same thing with Escape from New York was fantastic fill-ins.
Yeah, the Boom one.
Yeah, Big Trouble in China. I love the Ash stuff. I love, and the only one I keep missing is that. It's the Warriors. It's really been nothing since the 70s.
Yeah, I would love to see one, even an updated one where it's the gang and what it turned into, because by now all those gangs that were just dudes, on street corners and stuff, now it's sort of grown into something, or it's metastasized into something horrible, that's interesting.
And that's something where what happened after all of the events of that night. I'm pitching that to other people. You could steal it. I don't want any credit. I want it for myself to read.
It sounds like something Dynamite would for sure do. So
yeah, that's right. It sounds like something that you wouldn't be hard to get the license to it either.
Yeah,
not being used. And before we were YouTubers, we had a podcast, and we had Thomas Waits on, who was in the movie, and he told us some fantastic stories about.
Awesome!
It was really.
Yeah, I just saw that in theaters last year. They played it at a all day long marathon out here.
It's such a watchable movie.
It's such
so
so
good.
different than anything else around at that time, or
Yeah.
still so.
Or at this time.
Yeah, right. There's nothing like it. It's just, and it's a nice picture of New York at that time. So
Yeah.
there you go.
There you go.
I don't want any credit. Just
I'm glad we took this trip into the Warriors as well.
Well, like I was saying before, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yes,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it. And
what do you have? You have anything coming up? Any
we have
conventions
Uncanny
or
Valley.
no conventions? You're going to be
appearances
or anything?
Yeah, I'm going to be at WonderCon. So Farrell comes out on the 27th
Right.
of this month. And then that weekend is WonderCon. I'm going to be at WonderCon. And then the week after that, I'm going to be on the East Coast. I'm going to be at All Yeah Comics in Harrison, New York. And then I'll be at Third Eye Comics in Maryland.
When is the Oh Yeah one?
On,
Because maybe we'll come up to that. I know the store. Where is it?
oh, cool, yeah.
It's in,
It is on
I believe,
the 6th, I think?
of April.
April 6th.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you know. Maybe we'll take a trip up there.
yeah, sure.
And the 7th, we're at Third Eye. So that'll be me and Trish. So in the time between now and then, Farrell will have come out. If you read Stray Dogs, you'll definitely want to meet Trish because she rules.
Good. All right. Cool. All right.
So yeah, we got that coming up, and then I've got comics coming out like fucking crazy in the next few
Your
weeks.
name's on there. Your name's on everything. You work for every company. You know,
I was trying to dispute what you said, but I do work for all of them.
Yeah, I know it's all of them.
you did covers for Marvel, right? You did.
DC
haven't
is the least. I did one cover for DC one time, so I would hesitate to say that I work for DC. Although at San Diego, I definitely go get their free food at their parties because I'm like, I'm glad you're back.
There you go.
Time.
You have worked for everybody.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun for us. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was great talking to you.
We'll be in touch. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye.